The neural implant in Ambassador Sarah Chen's head hummed to life as the diplomatic vessel entered the Void Collective's territory. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to ripple and bend, a testament to the bizarre physics the Void beings commanded. She pressed her hand against the cool glass, watching tendrils of darkness curl through the starfield. Final approach to the Collective's primary node, Captain Rivera announced from the helm. Ambassador, are you detecting anything yet? Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on the quantum receiver nestled against her brainstem. For 6 months, she'd trained with this experimental tech, learning to interpret the gravitational waves the Void beings used to communicate. She was humanity's last hope for peace, the only one who could speak their language. There's something, she murmured, like standing in deep water, feeling pressure from all sides. The sensation intensified as their ship drew closer to the massive structure ahead, if you could call it a structure. The Collective's home defied conventional geometry, a constantly shifting mass of dark energy that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Dr. Patel, the quantum physicist who designed her implant, monitored the readings from a nearby console. The wavelength patterns are consistent with what we've recorded before, but much stronger. They know we're here. Sarah nodded, swallowing hard. After 3 failed diplomatic missions, each ending with the complete disappearance of the human in voice, she represented Earth's final attempt at peaceful contact. If she failed, the military hawks would get their way. They'd deploy the resonance bombs, weapons designed to disrupt the very fabric of space the Void beings inhabited. The resulting war would devastate both species. Ambassador. Captain Rivera's voice was tight. We're being pulled in. The ship shuddered as invisible forces took hold, guiding them toward an opening that seemed to appear from nowhere in the writhing darkness. Sarah's implant buzzed more intensely, translating the complex gravitational frequencies into something her human brain could process. Approach. Enter. Witness. The words formed in her mind like ripples in a pond, alien yet somehow comprehensible. She gripped her console as they passed through the opening, entering a space that her eyes insisted couldn't exist. The laws of physics seemed more like gentle suggestions here. Life support stable, Rivera reported, though his knuckles were white on the controls. Artificial gravity holding. That's not artificial gravity, Dr. Patel whispered, staring at his instruments. The space itself is being manipulated. Incredible. Sarah barely heard them. The neural implant was overwhelming her senses now, transmitting wave after wave of complex information. She caught fragments, curiosity, caution, and something else, anticipation. The Void beings were studying them, she realized, testing their reactions. A figure began to coalesce before them, composed of swirling darkness and pinpoints of light like captured stars. It took a vaguely humanoid shape, though its proportions kept shifting subtly, as if it couldn't quite decide on a final form. You are different from the others. The thought words resonated through Sarah's mind. You hear our song. I do. Sarah spoke aloud, knowing the being would sense the gravitational ripples of her voice. I am Ambassador Chen of Earth. We seek peaceful dialogue with the Void Collective. The figure drifted closer. Sarah felt her companions tense, but she forced herself to remain still. The implant was feeding her emotional impressions now, complex harmonies of thought and purpose she was only beginning to understand. The others came with weapons in their minds. Fear, deception. You bring music. Music. Sarah hadn't expected that comparison. But as she focused on the waves washing through her consciousness, she began to understand. The Void beings didn't just communicate with gravity. They composed with it, creating intricate symphonies of space-time. The figure's form stabilized slightly, and Sarah gasped. Standing before her was the Void Queen, not just a representative, but the central consciousness of the entire collective. She'd assumed they'd need to work through layers of diplomacy before reaching the Queen. Instead, the most powerful Void being had come to greet them personally. Show me your song, Ambassador. The Queen's thoughts carried a weight of authority that made Sarah's implant tingle. "Show me why we should not end your species' discord." Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd trained for, though not quite how she'd expected it. She focused on the implant, remembering Dr. Patel's lessons on wave generation. Then, carefully, she began to speak, not in words, but in precisely modulated gravitational ripples. She transmitted images of Earth, of human culture and achievement. But more than that, she tried to convey the essence of humanity's potential, their capacity for growth, for understanding, for harmony. She wove it all into a gravitational symphony of her own, crude perhaps by void standards, but sincere. The Queen's form flickered with points of light. "Intriguing. You understand more than expected. But understanding is not enough. The discord must end." "Then help us end it," Sarah said, adding harmonics of hope and determination to her words. "Our species are so different, but we can learn from each other. Guide us toward harmony." The void beam moved closer still, until Sarah could see the swirling cosmos captured within its form. The neural implant was screaming with input now, but she forced herself to remain focused, maintaining eye contact with a being that was more like a tear in reality than a person. Previous attempts at harmony failed. Why should you succeed? Sarah's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Because I'm not here to study you, or to negotiate traditional treaties. I'm here to understand your song, and to help you understand ours." The Queen was silent for a long moment, though Sarah's implant registered complex harmonies of consideration. Finally, the void being spoke again. "Then let us begin, Ambassador. Show us your species' true song, and we will show you ours. But be warned, such understanding comes with a price." As Sarah prepared to respond, she realized this was just the beginning. The real challenge wouldn't be speaking the void being's language. It would be bridging the vast gulf between their ways of existing. But as she looked into the starlit depths of the Queen's form, she felt something she hadn't expected: hope. The fate of two species now rested on her ability to turn gravitational waves into music that both humans and void beings could dance to. It was time to compose the most important symphony of her life. Sarah's neural implant never truly went silent anymore. Even in her quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel, she felt the constant thrum of the Void Queen's presence, a symphony of gravitational waves that made space itself sing. After 3 days of intensive conversations, she was beginning to understand why the previous diplomats had disappeared. "Your readings are off the charts," Dr. Patel said, examining her latest neural scans. "The implant is adapting far beyond our initial projections. It's almost as if," he trailed off, frowning at his displays. "As if it's evolving." Sarah finished. She could feel it. The quantum receiver wasn't just translating anymore. It was changing, becoming something new, like her understanding of the void beings themselves. The Queen's latest transmission rippled through her consciousness. "Come, there is more to share." Sarah stood, steadying herself against the wall. "I need to go. She's waiting." "Ambassador," Captain Rivera stepped forward, concern etched on his face. "Maybe we should take a break. Your exposure to their communications is reaching unprecedented levels." She shook her head. "We don't have time for breaks. The military back home is still preparing those resonance bombs. Every moment we spend here has to count." The journey to the Queen's chamber, if you could call it that, was becoming familiar. Sarah navigated the impossible geometries of the void structure with growing confidence, her implant helping her interpret spaces that human eyes were never meant to process. The Queen's form coalesced from the darkness, more defined than before. She seemed to be making an effort to maintain a consistent shape, though starlight still swirled through her ethereal body. "Your mind grows stronger," the Queen observed. "You begin to truly hear, and you're learning to speak in ways I can better understand." Sarah replied, noticing how the gravitational waves were gentler now, more finely tuned to human neurology. "We're adapting to each other." "Yes, But adaptation brings revelation. Are you prepared for truth? Sarah straightened. Truth about what? About why we called your species discord. About why previous attempts at communication failed. About what we truly are, and what you might become. The space around them shifted, and Sarah felt herself being drawn into something like a memory, but conveyed through gravitational waves. She saw the void being's history unfold before her, not in images, but in complex harmonies of space-time that her evolving implant somehow translated into understanding. The Void Collective hadn't always been energy beings. Eons ago, they'd been physical creatures, not unlike humans. But they'd discovered something profound. Consciousness itself was a wave function, one that could be transferred from matter into the fabric of space itself. They'd transcended their physical forms, becoming beings of pure gravitational energy. The others who came before you, the Queen explained, they did not disappear. They chose to join us. Sarah's mind reeled. You transformed them. They recognized the song in themselves. The same song we hear in your species. Humanity stands where we once stood, on the edge of a greater understanding. But your people turned toward weapons, toward discord, rather than harmony. The resonance bombs, Sarah whispered. You're not just saying they would kill you. They would. They would shatter the very frequencies that allow consciousness to merge with space-time. They would end not just our existence, but humanity's chance to evolve beyond its current form. Sarah sank to her knees, overwhelmed by the implications. The void beings weren't alien invaders or mysterious diplomats. They were humanity's potential future, reaching back through time to offer guidance. The previous diplomats hadn't been killed or kidnapped. They'd been transformed, transcended. You feel it already. The Queen's thoughts were gentle now. Your implant is not just changing. It is awakening what was always there. The ability to perceive and manipulate gravitational waves exists within all consciousness. We merely found a way to unleash it. Sarah's hand went to the back of her neck, where the implant hummed with new purpose. That's why you chose to speak with me directly. You knew the implant would catalyze something. Yes, but the choice remains yours, as it did for the others. We cannot force transcendence. It must be embraced willingly. And if I refuse, then you return to your people with a warning they may not heed, and humanity's path to harmony may be lost for generations. Sarah stood, her mind racing with possibilities. The implant pulsed with newfound strength, and she could feel the subtle gravitational waves emanating from her own consciousness now. The Queen was right. Something was awakening within her. There's another option, she said slowly. Help me show them. Not just through words or diplomatic agreements. Let me be a bridge. Not fully transcended, but not fully physical either. Living proof that our species can achieve harmony with yours. The Queen's form shimmered with what Sarah now recognized as surprise. Such a state has never been attempted. It would be uncomfortable, limiting. But it might be exactly what we need. A living translation, helping both sides understand each other. Sarah's confidence grew as she spoke. You've been waiting for humanity to evolve, but evolution needs guidance. Let me be that guide. The void being studied her for a long moment, stellar energies swirling in contemplation. Your song grows stronger by the moment, Ambassador. Perhaps you are right. But such a path would be dangerous. There are those among both our peoples who would see it as an abomination. Everything worth doing has its risks, Sarah said, adding harmonics of determination to her gravitational speech. The question is, are you willing to take this risk with me? The Queen's response was interrupted by alarms blaring through the diplomatic vessel. Captain Rivera's voice crackled over the comm. Ambassador, we're detecting multiple ships entering the system. Earth signatures, military vessels. Time was up. The Hawks had grown tired of waiting for diplomacy to work. Sarah met the Queen's gaze, two very different forms of consciousness reaching toward understanding. It seems, the Queen observed, that the time for choice has come sooner than expected. Sarah nodded, feeling the implant pulse in harmony with her racing heart. Then let's show them what true harmony looks like. Military vessels emerged from hyperspace like sharks scenting blood, their weapon systems charged and ready. Sarah felt their presence through her evolving implant. Discordant notes in the gravitational symphony, threatening to shatter the delicate harmony she'd worked so hard to build. Ambassador Chen. Admiral Harrison's voice crackled through the comm. You and your team are ordered to evacuate immediately. We're detecting massive energy buildups in the void structure. This situation has been deemed too volatile for further diplomatic contact. Sarah exchanged a glance with the Queen, whose form rippled with concern. They both knew what those energy buildups meant. The void beings were preparing to defend themselves. If either side attacked now, there would be no going back. Admiral, Sarah responded, adding subtle harmonics to her voice that her implant now allowed her to project. The situation is under control. We've made a breakthrough in communications. Stand down your weapons and let me explain. Your neural readings are far outside safe parameters, Ambassador. You've been compromised. The Admiral's tone left no room for argument. The resonance bombs are armed. Either you evacuate, or will be forced to proceed with the containment protocol. Sarah felt the Queen's thoughts brush against her consciousness. They fear what they do not understand. Fear leads to destruction. Then we'll make them understand, Sarah whispered. She straightened, addressing both the Admiral and the Queen. I propose a demonstration. Right here, right now. The partial transformation. The Queen's thoughts carried both concern and curiosity. It is untested, dangerous. We're out of options. Sarah turned to Dr. Patel, who had been monitoring her neural activity with growing fascination. Doctor, remember how you theorized that the implant might be capable of quantum entanglement with void-based consciousness? His eyes widened. Yes, but that was purely theoretical. The energy requirements alone would be exactly what they're detecting in the void structure. Sarah finished. It's not an attack preparation, it's an invitation. They'd been waiting for us to be ready. Captain Rivera stepped forward. Ambassador, what exactly are you suggesting? A bridge, Sarah said, her voice resonating with newfound harmonics. Not just between our methods of communication, but between our very forms of existence. The void beings aren't our enemies. They're our potential future, and I'm going to prove it. The Queen's form shifted closer, stellar energies swirling with increased intensity. The process cannot be reversed. You would become neither fully human nor fully void, a hybrid state that has never existed. Sometimes the only way forward is through uncharted territory. Sarah activated her comm again. Admiral, hold your fire and watch closely. I'm about to show you exactly what we've been missing about the void beings. She nodded to Dr. Patel. Monitor everything. What's about to happen? Humanity needs to understand it scientifically, as well as diplomatically. The physicist rushed to his instruments as Sarah turned to face the Queen. The implant hummed with increasing power as she opened herself to the gravitational frequencies around her. She felt the void being's consciousness reach out to meet hers, not to overwhelm or transform, but to merge in a new and unprecedented way. Begin, the Queen commanded, and the very fabric of space around them began to sing. Sarah felt it first in the implant, a surge of quantum energy that made her entire nervous system light up like a stellar network. The void being's consciousness wrapped around hers like a cocoon of living starlight, but instead of pulling her fully into transcendence, it held her in perfect balance between states. Through the viewport, the human military vessels watched in astonishment as Sarah's form began to shift. Her physical body remained, but it now rippled with the same cosmic energy that composed the void beings. Starlight coursed through her veins, and gravitational waves danced around her like an aurora. Impossible, Admiral Harrison breathed over the comm. No, Sarah responded, her voice carrying both human speech and gravitational harmonics. Not impossible. Inevitable. This is what the void beings have been trying to show us. We're not just making first contact, we're meeting our own potential. Dr. Patel's instruments were going haywire as he tried to document the transformation. The quantum field interactions. It's like nothing we've ever seen. Ambassador, you're somehow existing in multiple states simultaneously. Sarah felt the truth of his words. Her consciousness now straddled two realms, the physical world of her human body and the quantum reality of void consciousness. It was disorienting, uncomfortable, and absolutely exhilarating. The bridge is formed, the Queen announced, her thoughts now crystal clear in Sarah's hybrid awareness. But it must be maintained. The energy cost. I feel it, Sarah acknowledged. Maintaining this state was like trying to hold back a tide with pure willpower. But she could also feel something else, the beginnings of understanding from the human ships watching her transformation. Admiral. She projected her voice across both conventional communications and gravitational waves. The void beings aren't our enemies. They're not even truly aliens. They're post-physical beings who learn to exist as pure consciousness within space-time itself. And they're offering to teach us how. She held up her hand, watching stellar energy dance between her fingers. This is just the first step. A demonstration of what's possible when we stop fearing the unknown and start embracing new forms of existence. The military vessels held their position, weapons still armed, but no longer targeting the void structure. Admiral Harrison's voice came through again, heavy with disbelief. Those waves were detecting. That's you. It's all of us, Admiral. Every conscious being generates them. The void beings just learn to use them, to transcend physical limitations. The resonance bombs wouldn't just destroy them. They'd destroy humanity's chance to evolve. Through her new perceptions, Sarah felt the subtle shift in the gravitational fields around the military ships, a relaxing of combat posture, a willingness to listen. But she also felt something else. Strain. Her hybrid state was taking its toll, demanding more energy with each passing moment. You cannot maintain this bridge indefinitely, the Queen warned. I don't need to, Sarah replied. I just need to maintain it long enough to start something new. A true exchange between our peoples, with me as the translator. As if in response to her words, the implant pulsed with renewed purpose, adapting to its role in maintaining her transformed state. Sarah stood at the threshold between human and void, bridge and barrier, present and future. The real work was just beginning. The next 72 hours tested the limits of Sarah's endurance. Maintaining her hybrid state felt like trying to hold two magnets apart. The pull toward either full humanity or complete void transcendence was constant and exhausting. But she had no choice. She was the living proof both sides needed. The neural patterns are stabilizing, Dr. Petal reported, studying his readings with fevered excitement. It's as if your consciousness is quantum-locked between states. Theoretically impossible, but theory is having a rough week, Sarah managed, her voice carrying both human speech and gravitational harmonics. Through her enhanced perceptions, she sensed the growing audience around the void structure. More human ships had arrived, not just military vessels now, but scientific expeditions, independent observers, even civilian craft pushing the boundaries of restricted space. The Queen's form shimmered beside her. They come seeking understanding, but some seek power. Sarah nodded. She'd felt them too. The minds burning with ambition rather than curiosity. Some saw the void being's abilities as weapons to be harnessed. Others viewed Sarah's transformation as a threat to human purity. And a few, paradoxically, wanted to rush headlong into mass transcendence without understanding the consequences. Ambassador, Captain River approached, tablet in hand. We're receiving transmission requests from 17 different Earth governments, plus the Colonial Council. They're demanding explanations. Then let's give them one. Sarah straightened, drawing on reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. Patch me through to all channels. As Rivera worked to establish the connections, Sarah felt the Queen's consciousness brush against hers. You understand the risk. Once this knowledge spreads, It cannot be contained. It was never meant to be contained, Sarah replied. That's why you revealed yourselves to humanity in the first place, isn't it? You were waiting for us to be ready for the next step. The void being's form pulsed with something like approval. You understand more than any who came before. The communication system chimed, indicating a mass connection. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the curious press of thousands of minds waiting for answers. Her hybrid consciousness could sense their gravitational patterns: fear, hope, greed, wonder, all radiating in unique frequencies. People of Earth and the colonies, she began, her harmonically enhanced voice carrying across space itself. 3 days ago, I underwent a transformation that many of you have now witnessed. I stand before you as neither fully human or fully void, but as living proof that our species are not meant to be enemies. We are meant to be evolutionary partners. She gestured, letting starlight dance between her fingers. The void beings are not aliens in the traditional sense. They are post-physical consciousness, beings who learn to exist within the fabric of space itself. More importantly, they were once like us, physical beings who discovered the key to transcending their original form. A chorus of questions erupted across the channels. Sarah felt the spike in gravitational disturbances as emotions ran high. She pressed on. But transcendence cannot be rushed or forced. The void beings are not here to transform us overnight. They are here to guide us, to help us understand the true nature of consciousness and its relationship to the universe. And what about you, Ambassador? The question came from a colonial governor, her voice sharp with suspicion. Are we supposed to believe you've become some kind of hybrid goddess? Sarah actually laughed, though the sound carried strange harmonics. Hardly. I'm a prototype, a proof of concept. This partial transformation is incredibly difficult to maintain and probably impossible to sustain long-term. I'm not meant to be worshipped. I'm meant to be studied, so we can understand how to proceed safely. More questions poured in, but they were interrupted by alarms blaring through the void structure. Sarah's enhanced senses screamed warning moments before Dr. Patel shouted, "Energy spike. Someone's activated. Oh God." She felt it, the distinctive resonance of the weapons humanity had created to destroy the void beings. Not from the military vessels, but from somewhere else. A hidden ship waiting for this moment. They seek to end the choice. The Queen's thoughts carried grim certainty. To force humanity down a single path. Sarah reached out with her hybrid consciousness, trying to locate the source of the attack. There, a stealth vessel, its hull masked by experimental technology. She could feel the resonance bombs powering up, their frequencies designed to shatter the very foundations of void existence. Admiral Harrison. She called through both conventional comms and gravitational waves. There's a stealth ship at coordinates Mark 739. They're going to. The first bomb launched, its quantum payload rippling through space like a cancer. Sarah felt the void being's pain as the weapon began to tear at their very essence. Without thinking, she reached out with both her physical and void-transformed aspects, trying to contain the destruction. Agony ripped through her as the resonance effect tried to tear her hybrid form apart. But in that moment of crisis, she discovered something unexpected. Her unique state allowed her to interact with the weapon's frequencies in ways neither humans nor void beings could manage alone. The bridge goes both ways. The Queen's thoughts pierced through her pain. You can redirect the resonance. Sarah understood. Just as she bridged the gap between physical and void consciousness, she could bridge these attacking frequencies, transforming destruction into something new. But the strain. Dr. Patel, she gasped, record everything. If I don't, others need to understand. She opened herself fully to the resonance bomb's energy, becoming a living converter between states of reality. The void structure shook as she channeled the weapon's power, transforming its discord into harmony. Through failing senses, she heard Admiral Harrison ordering the stealth ship's capture. She felt the Queen's consciousness supporting her, helping to bear the enormous load. And she felt something else, a change spreading through space itself as the redirected energy created something entirely new. The last thing Sarah Chen saw before consciousness fled was a blossom of impossible light, spreading outward like the dawn of a new universe. The last thing she felt was hope. Sarah floated in a sea of consciousness, neither fully awake nor completely unconscious. Gravitational waves rippled through her awareness, carrying fragments of conversation. Neural patterns stabilizing. Unprecedented quantum state. She's still in there, just different. She felt the Queen's presence, a constant anchor in the swirling chaos of her transformed mind. Return when you are ready, the void being's thoughts whispered. You have done more than we dreamed possible. Slowly, Sarah began to reassemble herself. The resonance bomb's energy had nearly torn her apart, but in redirecting it, she discovered something revolutionary. She opened her eyes to find herself suspended in a field of gentle light, her body still flickering between physical and void states, but now with greater stability. Ambassador Chen. Dr. Patel's face appeared in her field of view, lined with exhaustion but bright with excitement. How do you feel? Sarah considered the question, taking inventory of her transformed self. Like I've been rebuilt from scratch, she said, her voice carrying new harmonics. How long was I unconscious? 5 days, Captain Rivera answered from nearby. You've had quite an audience. She could feel them now, human, and void consciousness gathered around her, watching, waiting. The Queen's form shimmered into view, more clearly defined than ever before. You have changed the resonance, the void being observed, not just within yourself, but within space itself. Sarah nodded, understanding flowing through her enhanced perceptions. When she'd redirected the resonance bomb's energy, she hadn't just prevented destruction. She created a new quantum state, a stable field that made the bridge between human and void consciousness more accessible. The protocol, she whispered, the name coming to her with sudden clarity. That's what this is, not just a diplomatic agreement, but a literal protocol for transformation, a safe path between states of being. Dr. Patel practically bounced with enthusiasm. The readings are extraordinary. The energy field you created, it's self-sustaining, generating a quantum framework that could theoretically allow controlled transformation on a massive scale. The attack, Sarah remembered suddenly. The stealth ship, captured, Captain Rivera assured her. A radical faction that wanted to force humanity to remain pure. They didn't count on you being able to redirect their weapon. Admiral Harrison's voice came from a nearby comm panel. They also didn't count on how their actions would unite everyone else. Nothing like an attempted mass murder to bring people together. Sarah sat up carefully, marveling at how her hybrid form now felt natural, comfortable. The strain of maintaining it had vanished, replaced by a sense of balance she hadn't thought possible. Through the viewport, she could see the void structure had changed, incorporating the new resonance patterns into its very fabric. So what happens now? She asked, directing the question to both her human colleagues and the Queen. Now, the void being responded, we build on what you have created. The protocol provides a framework for gradual understanding, for controlled evolution. No more binary choice between remaining physical or transcending completely. A spectrum of consciousness, Sarah mused, allowing individuals to explore different states of being, to find their own balance between physical and void existence. Dr. Patel nodded eagerly. Early analysis suggests the protocol field could be replicated on a smaller scale, transformation chambers that would allow for safe experimentation and gradual adaptation. With proper guidelines and monitoring. With proper responsibility, Sarah corrected gently. This isn't just about the technology. It's about understanding the true nature of consciousness, about growing into something greater without losing what makes us human. The room had grown crowded as more observers gathered, human scientists and diplomats, void beings in various states of manifestation, all drawn to this moment of transformation. Sarah felt their collective attention, their hope and curiosity radiating in complex gravitational harmonies. Standing carefully, she moved to the viewport. The universe looked different through her hybrid perceptions, not just stars and space, but an intricate web of consciousness and potential. The protocol field shimmered like a new dawn, offering possibilities neither humanity nor the void beings had imagined alone. "We'll need new laws," she said thoughtfully, "new ethical frameworks, new ways of thinking about identity and existence itself. We will guide, but not direct." The Queen agreed. Each species, each individual must find their own path through the spectrum of consciousness. Sarah turned to face the assembled observers, her transformed state a living example of what was possible. "Then let's begin. Not with fear or force, but with understanding. Not with weapons or walls, but with bridges." She held out her hand, letting starlight dance between physical fingers. "The universe is wider than we ever imagined, and consciousness deeper than we ever dreamed. The protocol isn't just about transformation. It's about choice, about possibility, about learning to exist in harmony with all the forms that consciousness can take." The void structure hummed with agreement, its crystalline surfaces reflecting the combined light of stars and souls. Humanity stood on the brink of its greatest journey, not out into space, but into new dimensions of existence itself. And Sarah Chen, neither fully human nor fully void, but something gloriously in between, would help guide the way forward, one consciousness at a time. The bridge remains. The Queen's thoughts carried satisfaction and hope. And through it, both our peoples will discover what they might become. Sarah smiled, feeling the resonance of truth in those words. The real work was just beginning, but for the first time in history, humanity and the void beings faced the future not as adversaries or even allies, but as partners in evolution itself. The protocol would ensure that the bridge remained open, offering infinite possibilities to those ready to explore them. In the end, that had been the void being's gift all along, not transcendence itself, but the freedom to choose it, to explore it, to grow into it at their own pace. The stars beckoned, filled with new potential, as humanity took its first steps into a broader spectrum of existence. And in the harmonic frequencies of space itself, the future sang with promise.